Hello and welcome to episode 115 of Retro Encounter, RPGFan's weekly podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, Monsoon on the boards, and I am your host for today. And I am here with 6 Retro Encounter regulars. Starting with, let's introduce them right to left, starting with Robert Fenner.
Hello, Townscar Marty on the boards. The weather outside is frightful, but Retro Encounter is delightful.
That was pretty good. All right. I accept that. Second in line is Peter Triezenberg.
Hi, Peter Triezenberg. I have Fury on the boards. The weather outside is indeed frightful, as my tires can attest to.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan in December, I believe every word you say about that. And also from the Northeast, we got Marcos Gaspar.
Howdy there, Marcos Waldheimer on the boards. And, yeah, the weather's great.
And our South Korean correspondent, Dom Kim.
Hello, it's DH Kenny on the board, and the weather right now, it's too dark to tell.
It's daytime where I am, but I'm afraid it's like the middle of the night for poor Dom. I feel a little bad for recording it where we are now. And last and certainly never least, we have Alana Hagues.
Hey everyone, Diving Falcons on the boards. Probably the weather outside is frightful, but this is probably the only place that snow hasn't touched yet, so...
I know. We had a few flakes in central London a couple of days ago, but it was, like, really nothing.
It's not... I mean, I know Mike was moaning before that he was cleaning off snow, but...
It was really only on my car and on the steps out of my house, because it's it's just a thin layer of like half melted stuff that's going to turn into ice in a few hours. So I had to clean off my car, but it's a non-factor. It's just gross, wet, thin snow. Not even pretty snow. It's too bad. All of us, I assume, are in slightly warmer than outside places recording this podcast, and we have an extra large panel today. 6 is about as large as I'm willing to go for a Retro Encounter episode. And for which topic you ask, it is just a look back at the year 2017. We have done year-end episodes on Retro Encounter each of the past 2 years, and so we're just continuing that tradition with this year. Now, if I recall from last year, some of you were on that recording. Basically, we decided that it wasn't the most robust year for RPGs, but there were some games we liked, and we talked about, you know, your Final Fantasy 15s and your Trails of Cold Steels. But we didn't have a lot to talk about last year in my memory on the year-end episode. But have times changed, because 2017 has been insane for video game releases, in particular games that RPGFan covers, at least in my estimation. So
Very true.
I'm going to pick on someone at random, and it's Marcos. Did you have a single favorite game, or maybe a couple favorite games that hit you this year that you enjoyed playing?
Yeah, how about that Blue Reflection game? Yeah, I'm kidding.
Marcos, you're causing war flashbacks.
Oh boy.
No, new games that come out this year is nice. Xenoblade, too.
I would wager that some of us are playing that, like, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not far enough in to make judgment yet.
Did Fire Emblem Heroes come out this year?
It did.
The mobile game.
Heroes is the mobile game, and Warriors is the movie game.
Both of them came out this year.
Oh, they
Yeah,
did?
right.
Okay.
We've had 3 Fire Emblem games this year. We've had Echoes as well, so we've had a real... Imagine, 4 years ago, Fire Emblem was a dying franchise, and now look, we've had 3 games this year, so...
Yeah, so many
take of that what you will.
So many Fire Emblem plural nouns this year. We got Echoes, Heroes, Warriors, and there's a teased yet unannounced Switch game that in the Fire Emblem series coming out, being revealed next year, I believe, but we don't know anything about that yet. Yeah, they announced it ages ago, but it was a yet to be announced Switch game. So wait, Marcos, which one do you mean to be talking about right now, Heroes or Warriors?
I can go either way. I both enjoy Heroes and Warriors, but right now the most recent one to my mind is Fire Emblem Warriors. Absolutely love that game. Great Warriors game.
Cool. I know that it got a very positive review from Nathan, one of the people on the reviews team. Has anyone else here played Fire Emblem Warriors? Because, I mean, as a rule, I kind of think Uso games are almost all the same. So I haven't played one since one of the One Piece games like 3 or 4 years ago.
I think like the characters and the settings are really what makes the Warriors game shine. So like I'm a big fan of those One Piece games. I haven't gotten around.
The one I played was a delight, but I only
they're
played
great. I haven't gotten around to Fire Emblem Warriors yet, but like I've literally just gotten my Switch. So,
but I haven't played a Warrior. The last Warriors game I played was the first Dragon Quest Heroes, which I enjoyed. But
it's a cool game.
I own that one, but I haven't put it in my PS4 yet.
We had 2 out this year, and apparently that's a big improvement, but I haven't had a chance to get to it yet.
Yeah, but 2 came out, and I was like, I've already played enough Dragon Quest Heroes, and didn't end up picking it up.
It's a little unfair of them to call some of the Muso games Heroes and some of them Warriors. And while we have other games called Heroes and Warriors, it's just all so confusing for an old man like me. I don't know.
Hey, imagine if they muddied the waters with Dragon Quest Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dragon Warriors.
If they called it Dragon Warriors, I would put a poster of the game cover in my bedroom.
It would have been great.
That's just excellent.
Tattoos.
Or Dragon Warrior Monster Warriors.
I would somehow try to buy money for the gacha for Fire Emblem Heroes and accidentally buy Fire Emblem Warriors in doing so. But I don't play Fire Emblem Heroes because I have an aversion to gacha games as well as Muso games, I guess, after just burning my eyeballs out playing Final Fantasy Brave Exvius for several months. But a lot of people are into Fire Emblem Heroes. It's really satisfying for a lot of players, and I know that they just added one of my all-time favorite Fire Emblem characters to it. Sometime in October or November, they added Ira from Fire Emblem Seisen no Keifu, which is dope because she is the best. And one of my friends that plays the game knows I was asking about her, and when he got her in a role, I don't know which of us was more excited, but if you like gacha games and you like Fire Emblem, then this game was made for the center of that Venn diagram.
Who all played Fire Emblem Echoes this year? Because I was curious about picking it up, but my let's call it sheer loathing for Fire Emblem Fates sort of turned me off.
No, sadly I'm not a big Fire Emblem fan, and the last one I really played was Awakening, and then between Awakening and 7, they were the only 2 that I'd played. I've not really gelled with any of them, so I kind of give Fire Emblem a wide berth because it's kind of, I don't know, it's not for me is probably the best way to describe it. And strategy games aren't my best friend anyway, but there is, I think, especially with Fates, kind of put me off the series, but Nathan, again, reviewed Fire Emblem Echoes, and he gave it a really nice review, so it kind of managed to blend.
All right.
I think, to be fair, Echoes takes, some good elements from... Is it Gaiden? Fire Emblem Gaiden that it's based off of?
Right,
it's a remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden, which was one of the NES Fire Emblem games.
Which is everyone says it's the Final Fantasy II, Zelda 2 of the Fire Emblem series, but
it's a weird game.
It is a weird game, and it had some elements that didn't get reused until Awakening. So I think it's managed to bounce off of Awakening's success, but also managed to keep kind of old school fans happy to a degree, I think. So
yeah,
I've had some nice things about Echoes, so I think people should, if you want to give Fire Emblem another go, then maybe give it a shot, but I don't think maybe the Switch version will get me back into it. I don't know, but the series is not really for me, I'm afraid.
I don't know exactly whether to call myself old school or not, or lapsed or not, because I'm in this weird in-between stage with Fire Emblem. I've beaten 5 or 6 games in the series, including 2 of the Japan-only ones that have full English translations. But I also fell off the wagon in Fates. I really didn't like the map design or the characters or how it recycled a lot of the Awakening stuff, but in a less palatable way.
It was a stinker.
Yeah, I did not. I really was turned off by Fates.
The problem is they kind of just come across as caricatures of their traits, so they've all got one trait and they are defined by that trait as far as I can tell, because Awakening was sort of going that way. Yeah, Awakening was going that way anyway, with Gaius and his little sweet fetish and his name, who cutting up potatoes and stuff, and they just kind of based all of their discussions around that. And then Fates kind of ran with that idea. They were the fans really like this, let's just give them this. But I do like the way they kind of split it into 2, so they gave you a harder version and an easier, but really the way that they did it was kind of just milking the cow dry, honestly.
And
I mean,
also,
that's
selling a third true version, and more DLC than ever for a Fire Emblem game. It's the best-selling game in series history, probably because of the success of Awakening. But a lot of people did like Echoes' return to old schoolness. I did hear that some of the maps late in the game are pretty bad, but in general, it's a good, likable Fire Emblem game. I remember Derek talking about it on Random Encounter earlier this year. He was quite enjoying it when he was in the middle of it. But I haven't. It's the kind of game I might get later. Except there's always too many games that I should be or shouldn't be playing. So I haven't gotten it yet.
That's actually really interesting. I've been wanting to pick up Echoes as well, but wow, I hate for Fates. I actually liked Fate, but I think what was most alluring about it was the music. Surprise! It was the music.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's a good soundtrack.
You are the person that brought up Blue Reflection on this podcast, so of course you're into game music.
Yeah,
one of my least favorite games of the year with one of my favorite soundtracks.
I don't know if there's a better example of a game with an amazing soundtrack that's a less fun game. I would also use that to describe Tokyo Xanadu to a degree, but it's even more exaggerated with Blue Reflection.
Yeah, and it was to the point where I pre-ordered the Japanese limited edition so I would get the soundtrack because I know Gust, and it was Cuss, correct? That made it?
Yes,
Team Gust?
Yep.
They're not going to release a soundtrack ever unless they get they find a way to make a lot of money off it, because they did that with Knights of Azurus or something like that. Azure Knights, whatever it's called. Thank you. They did the same with that. And they were the limited edition Japanese version for the full sound, or even the more soundtrack. When I finally did get Blue Reflection, to go back to that, the soundtrack, like Chef Kiss, pristine. Definitely going to be number one on my list this year for music of the year. It is fantastic.
I love it as well. Yeah, it's really good. And in a year of really strong soundtracks, it is quite amazing. We say that the games this year have been ridiculous. I think the soundtracks have been even more ridiculous. I can probably count on two hands how many games I love this year, but I can probably count on two hands and 2 feet how many soundtracks I've fallen in love with this year, to be honest. Ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we got Nier Automata soundtrack. Final Fantasy 15 was at the end of 2016, right? I'll still count that because it was more of early January.
They've been getting new music in for the DLC episode. Those are pretty good too.
Yeah, Akabe's Battle in the Big Bridge is a series best recomposition of Battle of the Big Bridge, so
Final Fantasy 15 was RPGFan's Game of the Year 2016, and some people are still salty about that, and which I take some delight in.
No salt for me here, good sir.
Meaningless.
Yeah. I mean, end of year lists are always BS, but they're sort of fun to write and fun to complain about. So it's really everyone's a winner. So maybe not all of us, but I think many people on this podcast will be contributing to the end of year feature. We tripped over a couple other 2017 games talking about soundtracks. So pick on someone at random again. Rob Fenner, what are your thoughts on Nier Automata?
What are my thoughts on Nier Automata? That is a game that is very, very, very high on my list this year. Certainly in my top 5. I guess I can't speak too much about its soundtrack because I'm not. I guess I'm not an RPGFan music guy, but in terms of the game itself, I was thrilled that Nier was being given a second chance with the mechanical chops of Platinum Games behind it. But playing through it, and for playing through a lot of it, I was worried that maybe it was trying to rehash what made the first Nier so special. And while there are thematic nods and even nods to story beats, I felt that it wasn't a rehash as much as a celebration that managed to take things further in places. There's some certain twists that the two games share, and I was worried okay, will this just be to appease the fans? But no, I think it's making a different statement, and I think I've just derailed myself here, but I think Nier Automata is a very, very special game, and it deserves to be remembered this year as for one of the games that was released much earlier in 2017. I think it's a very, very strong contender.
Yeah, Dom, didn't you also play Nier this year? I thought I saw you talk. You didn't?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did.
I wrote the third review for the site.
It was a popular game.
I thought I remember seeing a message from you talking about it. So, what were your thoughts on Nier, Dom?
I mean, I just thought it was phenomenal and very off the wall, strange, I guess, but it was a good kind of strange. It was like,
yeah,
and I don't know. There's just like, there's pretty much almost nothing that I disliked about Automata, really. Well, besides some of it's like, whatchamacallit, I thought that some of the social commentary was kind of like way too on the nose and a bit heavy-handed, especially in some of the side quests later on. Because like,
okay, interesting.
Yeah, because like, you know, like you're the main characters, they're like obviously fighting for humanity against these like robots, and like some of these robots they're like clearly meaning no harm at all. They're just like,
right, let's not go too far into the events of the game because we're.
No, yeah, I'm just like a generic example.
All right.
They're just like moseying around. And your character's like, oh, should I kill these robots or not? I'm like, dude, seriously. Just leave them alone.
Yeah, Automata's been getting a lot of praise in both sort of niche RPG circles and more mainstream circles. It even, I think it won a thing or two at the Game Awards, which were as, you know, industry and, you know, mainstream as hell a week or a couple weeks ago. But one thing, I know that Rob Steinman is playing it now, and he's finding the gameplay really repetitive and is questioning wanting to continue. For the last time he asked me about it. Do you
that's
agree?
him.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you don't think the gameplay is too repetitive?
I think it is, but I think the gameplay in almost every JRPG or any RPG at all is pretty repetitive. I mean, you need to have. One of the things that I'm slightly wistful about when it comes to Nier Automata is that it's Platinum doing it, but the combat, it's not as in depth and furious as something like a Bayonetta or one of their action games. And I mean, that's kind of understandable because it's like a stat based RPG. So I guess it's just, if you have the patience and the goodwill for I guess just an action RPG, a combat focused action RPG. I will say that there's like a late game part where you have to go through a few battle arenas, and I found those kind of boring. But with a Yoko Taro game, I mean, this mechanically this is his best game. But with any Yoko Taro game, it's really your investment in the mystery that keeps you going.
Okay, that's a game that I know is going to appear on a lot of people's endgame lists, and probably for good reason. I have not played either of the Nier games. They have been recommended to me by people a lot, and I learned a lot about the first Nier game editing 2 episodes of it for Retro Encounter last year.
They were a blast. Loved them.
It was probably a year and a half ago by now. I don't remember exactly when those recorded, but they both seem like they have really fascinating stories and character work, and if I had all the time in the world, I would absolutely play them, but as such, I don't know when I'll ever get to them, which is on me. That's too bad. I think I would really like Nier.
I think you would.
Like, repetitive gameplay in an RPG usually doesn't bother me if I like the characters or story well enough, so I would probably be all right with it, but it just hasn't happened for me, probably because 2017 was so dense. It just skipped right by me, because it was just the month before the 2 other games that we're going to talk about later this episode for sure. So who have I not picked on yet a little bit? Peter, what's one game that we haven't talked about yet in this episode that is might appear on your end of year list?
Persona 5.
Okay. All right,
little
let's do
game.
it.
I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a little obscure.
Yeah.
Niche.
What is that now?
Sorry, who?
Well, okay, now there's this
Persona what?
You say Fursona?
Whoa, no.
Yes.
No.
Tell me how to get a persona.
Wrong podcast.
Tell me.
I'm going.
All right, that's been episode 115 of Retro Encounter, everybody. Thanks for listening. But
That's a wrap.
Before we actually end it, Peter, how much were you anticipating Persona 5? It was a long-awaited sequel for many of us, and do you think it lived up to your expectations?
Yeah, I believe it did. It was probably the game I was most looking forward to this year. And also, it's really, of the Game of the Year contenders that have come out this year, like, I haven't played Breath of the Wild yet because I'm no Switch and I'm holding out. Xenoblade haven't played for the same reason. I have Nier on my shelf, but I haven't, like, had a chance to touch it yet. So, Persona 5, when that came out, that was pretty much what I was doing for, like, a solid month, was just experiencing that. I think it takes the formula of 3 and 4 and just irons out all the kinks and just creates this really, really fun, energetic, colorful game with it. It just has this great sense of style throughout the whole thing. The soundtrack's on point. The dungeon design is really fun. I think it might have some of the best level design I've seen this year. It's a step up from the random dungeons for sure. I dug it a lot. It's not without its fair share of problems. There are a few beats in the story that
oh boy,
as well as they should.
Yeah.
And the voice, not the voice acting so much as the English script is really wonky. I'm sorry, Atlas. I love you guys, but I don't know how they are definitely to kill us. Made it through made that past editing.
Look, they will definitely try to live up to the expectations you ask of them.
Well, two words that Peter said in his brief description, I think sort of exemplify Persona 5, and that's formula and style. Because this game is a sequel-ass sequel to Persona 3 and 4. It has the daytime and evening phases, the crash the dungeons or hang out with your friends, and while going to school, you're a teenager in Japan. It's all of the chief gimmicks of gameplay in Persona 3 and 4 are present in 5, and refined to the sharpest point possible. And things like the UI and the menus and like battle transitions and just like the camera work during battle is so stylish and smooth. It is such a refined sequel to those other games that I had a lot of fun just playing and doing things in it. But the stuff Peter said about the script and story not always being a home run is absolutely true. I don't think I enjoyed this cast as much as the casts of Persona 3 or 4. And for the story moments, while some excellent ones, it feels like there's a lot of filler. Like the parts of the story and parts of the just day-to-day investigation stuff dragged real hard for me. And
this game did not have to be 120 hours.
Oh,
I agree.
It felt like it should have been shorter than Persona 4. Ended up being the longest game in the series, and all of those memes of your cat bugging you to go to sleep are absolutely justified. Shut the F up, cat! Oh my god.
Morgana is best mascot for entire JRPG ever, though. So
Morgana's
Agreed.
for definite. Morgana is awesome.
Morgana's great, but she's also the worst reverse alarm clock in history. So
yeah,
we have some other Persona 5 fans here.
Weirdly enough, I wasn't really that put off by the pace. I mean, it's definitely a long game, but I guess maybe coming in after 3 and 4. I was just kind of like, okay, this is the industry. This is standard now. But that also feels like Atlas was trying to like live up to a standard they set for themselves as well, being like, okay, we got to pad out this month. Let's do a trip to Hawaii.
Yeah.
That'll be fun, right?
Those beach trips are so unnecessary that it's just kind of tiring, and I'm so fed up of them in 2017. More than any other year, it's like I've got my cap on and suddenly grown up and gone, oh yeah, you know what, I'm actually really tired of this after happening in 3 and 4.
Wow, maybe still lasts for your lifetime.
Yeah, I know. But to put some positive spin on things, because I have had some kind of offhand discussions with staff that I don't love Persona 5 as much as everyone else, which does not mean I don't love this game, because holy hell is it disgustingly good looking, and it's absolutely everything stylistically I wanted it to be. Combat is amazing. I really like the way that they've finally taken some elements from the older Persona games, is it Psychic and Nuclear or Psy-Wave or something like that? The two elements, and there are a couple of different things.
2 new elements and like demon negotiation. And a couple other
absolutely.
Things. And also having firearms and weapons as opposed to just a single weapon.
Yeah,
And actually,
it's
fighting the demonic pantheon rather than just having them, fighting generic shadows.
Yeah, instead of having separate shadows and personae, you fight demons that become your personae, just like a lot of SMT games in the older Persona games. That's also. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so even though some of the elements are slightly more watered down, it's nice to see them finally acknowledging, like, Persona 2 is good as well. Please take the elements back. And it's like they've managed to listen to that bit. Again, the game is probably one of the best looking games. You would not tell that game was a PS3 game. Like, it is ridiculously good looking. It pulls off the kind of borderline cell shade. It's not quite cell shaded, but it's got that kind of cartoon comic strip feel about it that kind of, it just runs away with it completely. The UI is absolutely stunning. I think if there's an award for UI, then Persona 5 wins, because it's really just nails everything on the head. It just misses a couple of things story-wise, and I've got issues with themes and things. Like, you can't promote themes of trying to stand out and be different and destroy the adults and things like that, and then go around and laugh at homosexual people and women and things like that. You can't do that. Minorities and majorities, everything's got to come together. You can't take small sects and just go, not these people, we're just going to laugh at them. You can't do that. And it really made me uncomfortable.
It was a little weird. It had punch-down humor, while its themes of, like, justice and catharsis were almost seemed to go against that.
Well, it's a Japanese game.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but it was, I enjoyed the hell out of Persona 5. I got the Platinum Trophy on it, and I've only done that for maybe 9 or 10 games ever. And,
that is a feat.
It's really just playing it a second time and being thorough with your second playthrough.
For definite.
But because it's not really a challenging game ever, I think, and once you have enough SP to go through a dungeon. But I really, really liked Persona 5. I don't think it hit the same highs for me as Persona 4, which is one of my all-time favorite games, but it basically satisfied my want for a new Persona game like 3 or 4, and I would love, when the inevitable Persona 6 happens, for it to have sort of a new vision that isn't quite as anchored to those 3 games. But
I should hope so, since Hashino's stepping away.
Yeah, Hashino's leaving, which, it kind of makes sense. The first 3 Persona games were and the second 3 Persona games were separate teams, sort of separate eras. I think it's time to start a new Persona chapter, and I think that would be really, really cool several years down the line, because goodness knows when that's happening, because they aren't quite done suckling off the Persona 5 teat yet.
I mean, my worry is that the new creative team will try too much to adhere to, the successful groundwork that Hashino has built, and that it would, de facto be a fan project of that era. But I hope that's an unfounded worry, and that we will get something new and different and strange.
It's hard to say, because the larger the budget of an RPG, the sort of more conservative I think the big company behind it wants to be with it. But
they struck gold with this format, so I can't really see them changing it dramatically anytime soon.
Yeah, but I really wonder if they're gonna like how rigidly they're gonna adhere to this formula when the inevitable Persona 6 happens. But that's speculation way too far down the line for an episode ostensibly about 2017 games. So we're going to stay in the first half of 2017 again. Talk about another game I have not played. Who here played and probably enjoyed Zelda Breath of the Wild?
Oh, me.
Okay, all right.
Me, surprisingly.
Oh, yeah, Alana.
It's really good.
Yeah, Alana, you were playing it pretty recently, weren't you?
I finished it 2 weeks ago.
All right.
Yeah.
Hit me.
Oh boy. So I had doubts. I always have doubts with a Zelda game. Zelda is always like, I'm going to walk in straight lines for 20 hours and do dungeons and do side quests that are way more interesting. Breath of the Wild takes everything that I kind of hate open world RPGs to a degree, or open world video games specifically, and I don't really like Zelda games, and it kind of pushes them together in a sandwich and goes, hey, this is really good. And I was glued to it for about 75 hours, and before I picked it up again, I'd said to some stuff, I was like, I'm not really sure that Breath of the Wild is that spectacular. And it's got problems, like, there's a couple of things wrong with it for definite, but boy, is this the biggest kick up the backside Zelda's had in a long time, and it absolutely deserves it, because that map and that world is just an absolute delight to explore. I mean, the vistas
Agreed.
are gorgeous. It is one of the best open world. It's the best open world map I've ever. It's the best open world map since Xenoblade Chronicles. I'm not as big a fan as X, but I really enjoyed scaling around Breath of the Wild's locations. There are some really strange changes to the formula, but really deserve it, to be honest. So there's a weather system, but there's also like a hot and cold system. So if you're in the desert, it will be really hot, so you need to change your armor or take some food that's got some cooling properties with it.
You're giving me nightmare flashbacks to Monster Hunter, where I had to drink hot drinks in the snow and cold drinks in the desert.
That's exactly what you have to do. Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, I'm really glad to bring that back to you.
It's cool, though. It's really, really cool.
It's effective because the thing is it's a learning curve, but you feel yourself getting better. You feel like because when you die, you just get taken back to the last quick save. And Breath of the Wild quick saves a lot. It quick saves every time you reach some tiny landmark, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them every time you walk past a shrine, every time you walk past a tower, stable, a lake, a bridge, everywhere. They're everywhere, and you'll die and you'll come back maybe 5-10 meters or miles away and just walk back up. You'll either run away from them, you'll throw a bomb at them maybe, you might blow yourself up, you might break all your weapons, but every single time you come back you can do something different about it. And it's the first game where you have the freedom that I feel that you have the freedom to do whatever you want, but you don't have to fight everything. It was about retraining myself, because in RPGs, I will fight everything I see on the screen. But for Zelda, I really had to scale that back and go, hang on a minute, it's a bat, it's not worth attacking, or this thing is 4 foot higher than me, let's leave it alone for now and come back in 20 hours when I've got the Master Sword or something like that. The Master Sword is optional. The Hylian Shield is optional as well, so you don't have to do any of that. You can literally go in and fight. You can go in and fight. Yeah, you can go in and fight Ganon within the first 5 hours of the game if you really want to. But what really is kind of staggering about Breath of the Wild is that Nintendo, this time last year, everyone was kind of writing them off and going, no, I don't see it. And you come to the end of this year, and Nintendo have completely blown everybody out of the water with their kind of polish and style and sheer brilliance. Like, Zelda Breath of the Wild is incredible, and I didn't think I'd say that about a Zelda game. I've not felt this way about a Zelda game since A Link to the Past. So
All right. Quick aside to talk about Nintendo's year in general. Maybe, like, if you aren't quite as attached to current events, you may know this, but launch years for consoles are usually just a pile of garbage. It's like
oh my goodness,
like,
not this year.
I know, like you look at the best launch games in systems past, like you have your exceptions, like your Mario 64s and your Castlevania Circles of the Moon, but mostly like launch years are terrible, and you really have to wait for the second year or maybe the holiday season of the first year to get to the good stuff. But holy crap, Switch! Like, Zelda and Mario are two gigantic home runs. It has one of the best versions of Mario Kart that I've ever played, and it also has a little hidden gem called Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, which I think I mentioned earlier that several of us might be playing that in our spare time right now. And Marcos, I think that includes you. You're playing Xenoblade 2 right now?
Absolutely.
So, around how far are you in it? And please give us your impressions.
I think I've already put 30 hours into it, which for me, that's not normal. I usually spend 30 hours within the first month of a game, because I'm usually busy. But for this one, I've been absorbed into it, and I really just enjoy both the music and the open world, kind of how I really loved Xenoblade Chronicles X, especially for those who played at Noctilum, the jungle area.
Yes, I love
gorgeous soundtrack. Mm-hmm. The second large area in the game. It feels like it's just copy paste with that. Beautiful scenery and absolutely gorgeous music. It's just bringing me back to those memories, and I'm absolutely loving it. I really enjoy the battling in it as well. I really have no idea what I'm doing during the fights. All I hear is this guy screaming, "Excellent, cool, It was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
You're playing Sonic.
But it's good to know there's someone commentating that I'm doing a cool job. It's like, all right.
Man, sounds like the DDR announcer, or like a
yeah, it does.
or like a Street Fighter Alpha era fight announcer. It's like, go for broke, like
combo breaker.
Excellent. So, who else here is playing Xenoblade? Alana, did you start, or are you still on Breath of Fire 4 like I am?
Well, I'm doing both, but sadly, I'm not even 5 hours into Chronicles, so you might have to come back. As of recording, I'm only 5 hours in. I'm sure I'll be further along the list, but it's okay so far. I know it takes a while to get going, so I'm nowhere near the meat of the game. Yeah, I'm getting there. I will say, though, the soundtrack is absolutely incredible, and I'm going to buy it day one, so that's my word.
I bought the special edition day one. I don't think I'm going to get to it till 2018, because I have a lot of projects ahead of me, some podcast related, some not. But it did come with a sample soundtrack that I want to say is 9 or 10 tracks, and I've been listening to it in my car, and I'm quite impressed. This is really good stuff. And I enjoyed the first Xenoblade a whole lot, but never played Chronicles X, mostly because I don't have a Wii U. And I think the correct me if I'm wrong, one of the executives at Monolith Soft said that he wants to do a Switch version of XCX. But so I have not played it yet. I own it. The soundtrack is confirmed dope from me, and also Marcos the Music Man. So that's I think those are at least 2 votes of confidence. And Rob Rogan reviewed it for the site right when it came out. I think he had a day of, or maybe day before review, and he gave it a solid 90. So
yeah, he did.
So that's another positive vote. But I think this game is a little divisive, just from my perception reading about it, because a couple mainstream venues, like I think GameSpot gave it a 7, and the Kotaku reviewer did not like it much at all. So there's also some issues with the script and with fan service and with the gacha nature of collecting rare blades that are really rubbing people the wrong way. And on a different podcast, Rob described it as Systems the RPG, because he was overwhelmed by how many things he had to balance just in the basic loops of the game.
But it's a Xeno game as well. Like, all of the Xeno games have about 4 or 5 different systems you need to keep an eye on at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. I'm also not surprised by the fan service, which is one of the saddest things I've had to say, because the minute the art style kind of popped up, it's kind of like, it's borderline, it's like more juvenile than Tales at the moment. It's kind of like...
Looks quite a bit like Tales, but like ramped up. Yeah.
Yeah, but like even the fan service, like I want to talk about a Tales game at some point in this podcast, because
we will.
Well, there was one at the beginning of this year, which was pretty strong.
Well,
it was, and that didn't really banter up to the fan service. So, yeah, I don't really want to bring a downer on it, because, like I said, I've only played 5 hours of it, and I wouldn't say I'm far in to give any definite opinions on the game.
I put in about 15 hours, and it makes a terrible, terrible first impression. Like,
it really does.
Just like that game should have started in that first dungeon, and it just should have been a bit punchier, and its tutorials are god-awful. But, reading that Kotaku review and what Jason Schreier had to say about it, I can't really dispute any of his problems with it. However, I'm still really enjoying it. It is obtuse, especially compared to the rest of what Nintendo has put out this year, and it is overcomplicated and explains its systems very badly. But if you go in wanting to engage with it, and it takes many, many hours to beat your head against it to engage with those systems, unless you're like a maniac like Scott, our streamer, who is just like going wild on it. You will have a good time eventually. And I mean, like, this is the first time that I bought a home console in its launch year, and the second time that I've bought one exclusively for a Xenoblade game. So like I went in wanting to really have a good time with it, and although initially I didn't, and there's still a lot of things mostly related to plot and fan service that I'm finding really distasteful and uncomfortable. But the moment to moment loop, it took me something like 10 hours to find out exactly how to do these elemental combos. And now that I'm doing that, I'm just having the greatest time with the battle system. And Alana, you and me both, we were talking on Twitter about how it's just a joy to get wiped out by massive aggressive creatures at like 100 levels above you.
I love it. Literally, I made a beeline. So in the first area, there was a dinosaur that's level 92. I made a beeline for it and went to attack it and died, and it was great. Like that's exactly what I wanted.
One of my
slap on the wrist in these games.
One
It's great.
of my fondest memories of the first Xenoblade is in Machna Woods. There's a herd of dinosaurs with levels in the 90s when your levels are in the 30s, and you have to sneak around their feet as they're sort of moving in a herd to get to the village.
You run through them and get attacked. That's how you do it.
No, I snuck around them. But like that feeling and just seeing giant monsters at high levels interspersed with your level 8 like sheep or whatever is fantastic. I'm glad that they kept the scale and that feeling of in Xenoblade 2.
I think a lot of the negative reaction as well, which is understandable, but a lot of people, this game was sold as the return to Xenoblade Chronicles, and while in size and scale, and obviously its focus on plot there are lots of things that don't quite match up to the kind of brilliance the Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, has.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a slap in the face to people, and obviously people do have snap reactions to it. But I think when you persevere and kind of put some of the negative sides, like ignore some of the blade designs, because some of them are awful, but some of them are adorable. Like the little one with the polar bear is special. Yeah.
And was I correct in hearing someone say that the territorial Rotbart comes back?
Yes, it does.
Oh, yeah.
It's running around in the first area.
First opening area.
Fantastic.
He killed me too.
I hope he becomes like the Ifrit of Xenoblade. I want him in every freaking game. I want him to be the first thing you fight, the first giant thing in the first open area every game. Like a wild slime appears, run, like fight, magic item, run. Seriously.
Yeah, definite.
So, we almost transitioned into talking into another game during that Xenoblade construction and discussion. Whoops. I just can't words today, guys. I'm sorry.
You're wording.
Yeah, all right, I'm wording okay at least. I'm wording adequately right now. So, Alana, I'm going to pick on you again. Tales of Berseria, one of the first big RPG releases of the year.
Yeah.
I remember right when it was released. Right when it was announced. Wow. See? Words. I can't do those.
You've been renounced.
I thought that...
Tales of Words.
Yeah, Tales of Words. And it's always a made-up word. Okay, mostly. But I thought that Velvet looked super dope as a heroine, just from the first moment that I saw that materials from that game. So,
yeah.
Both as a standalone game and maybe compared to recent Tales titles, what are your thoughts on Berseria? Did you review it for the site?
I did review it for the site, yeah, and I was tentative. I was really tentative because I'd over-reviewed Zestiria slightly, and it's kind of a badge that I'll wear. Zestiria, especially after the DLC, really, really rubbed me the wrong way, and I've left it alone ever since, and it's definitely down the bottom half of my games in terms of cast, story, the kind of system issues it has and everything. It's still got a really, really fantastic combat system. The music is one of the best soundtracks in the series. But Berseria I was really worried about because it's set a good few 100,000 years before the Zestiria. So I thought, well, what more interesting can you do with that world? Well, apparently quite a lot, because I should never doubt my pirate senses, because Tales of Berseria has pirates in it, and I love pirates.
And there's a full set of pirate costumes, which I also greatly appreciate as a fan of pirates.
Beautiful. So Tales of Berseria is definitely a really, really strong return to form. So I think I said in my review, it's got the best battle system since Graces, it's got the best story since Abyss, and it's got the best character since Vesperia, I would say. So I think...
That's a decade ago.
Yeah, exactly. So I was really happy playing through Berseria. I thought I would play maybe 5 to 10 hours and get really bored, but I just couldn't put it down. So I think it's down to the refinement in the combat system. So it goes with Team Destiny's style of things more. So kind of Grace's like branching paths. So if you do one attack, you can do this attack and then this attack rather than using TP. But also it just flows really well. So it takes a lot of the mistakes that Zestiria made and kind of refine them really, really well. it's still not the nicest looking game. Like, it definitely looks like a PS3 game, especially when you compare it to Persona. And the dungeon design isn't great, but I wouldn't let you put that off because I don't really think dungeon design's been particularly good for a very long time anyway. Tales just seems to be a really bad example of it, and ever since Exilia, really. Yeah, there's 6 characters. They all gel together really well. They're all misfits. And also, the child character is not irritating. He is one of the best characters in the game.
I'm not sure I believe you, as someone who...
You can believe me.
Okay,
believe me.
I hate, like, 90% of child characters in RPGs.
They do some really twisted stuff with them.
Okay.
They really do. This is the darkest Tales game as well, for sure. And again... Ignore terrible character design because the 2 of the female characters have terrible character design in this game. So, not quite as bad, but
it's like Velvet loses her little brother and then finds this, like, sad slave child who doesn't have a name and, like, absconds with him and then gives him the name of her little brother because he looks exactly like him. And then she starts, like, he doesn't really know how to deal with it, and then she has, like, nightmares and emotional freakouts about it. It's really... And he's, like, doing his best to, like, be stoic. He's not like a... It's really... intense for a Tales game.
It sounds like that. It's like
Yeah.
Alexander Dumas or Frank Norris wrote this Tales game. I'm into it.
It's excellent. Yeah, I thought maybe, like, even after I played it, I thought, I'd maybe not forget about it, but it wouldn't make it into my top 5. I think it's going to squeeze in there. Like, I'm still really impressed with it, and like, I really, really want to go back and play it again at some point. I'll buy the Pirate DLC for definite, and really had a blast with it. Like, it's genuinely like you weigh up everything for a game and you go, oh yeah, it's fantastic. But this was like, there was enough going for it for me. Like, I'm a hardened Tales fan anyway. Like, I really love the series in general, but I'd been a bit down on it. So Berseria was exactly the kick up I needed. And I think by the time this posts, we'll have had a Tales of 22nd anniversary stream. So
nice.
if we do have a new game coming, then excellent. If we have Vesperia PS3 coming, Namco, don't lie about that tweet. It will be here. I'll be really happy about it. But yeah, I think I'm glad that it took more than a year. So for the past, like, 5 years, the series had been annualized. But Berseria was about a year and a half after Zestiria, I think, for both Japan and the West. So it was a nice break, and it benefited out of it. So I really hope that they learn from that and decide to space out their releases a little bit, which is exactly the opposite of what the Atelier series is doing.
Yeah,
so
they I guess adopted the Ubisoft strategy with Assassin's Creed, where they took a year off, and Assassin's Creed Origins seems to have benefited from that year off, which is cool. I applaud it. I want good games. I want games in series I like to be good, which is the most shocking statement ever said on a Retro Encounter episode.
wow.
Let's see. We've done a lot of big name releases so far already, and there are still more to come. But let's go off the beaten path a little bit. I'm going to pick on you, Dom. Was there a game that came out this year that you played and enjoyed that maybe isn't a RPGFan headline kind of game? Because I know you reviewed a number of things this year, and a lot of it was stuff that I was barely familiar with.
Oh well, yeah. That's because most of my favorite games this year have actually been visual novels, surprisingly enough. I wasn't really expecting that at all, but yeah, I'd say that my contender for Game of the Year, or one of the strongest contenders for Game of the Year for me, is it's Muv-Luv Alternative. That's right. I don't know why the name slipped me for a second there, but yeah, it's the sequel game to Muv-Luv, which was released in summer 2016. Yeah, the Kickstarter for that was quite the wait, but it was worth it, I think. As much as I do like visual novels, like outside of Steins Gate, I've never really invested myself into the story of them. I just sort of played them as like filler between like game releases and stuff. With Muv-Luv Alternative, I found myself like really solidly invested in the story for, like, how long did it take me to finish? Like 50 hours it took me to read through the story.
Man.
And
gosh,
yeah, it was like watching just like one extremely long movie.
And I know Muv-Luv has been around for a while, because I remember some of my sort of more otaku friends, when I was in college in the late 2000s, were really into Muv-Luv at one time or another. But so is Muv-Luv Alternative like a retelling of the first one, or a straight-up sequel to the first one? And you said it had a kickstarted release worldwide?
No, yeah, it was. Well, the original series was released in like 2003, I believe, and there was a Kickstarter.
That's older than my assumption.
And there was a Kickstarter for it in 2015 for both Muv-Luv and Alternative, and both were successfully funded with I think it was over like $1.2 million.
Yikes!
It was like there was a lot. There was a lot of support behind it.
That's crazy.
And, yeah. And yeah, so Muv-Luv is basically a 2-part sort of like character introduction. There's like a first half of the game, and then there's a solid like second half of the game. Like after finishing Alternative and going back through the first game, it's like it was pretty like you start to see like all these like foreshadowed moments, and you're like, oh, so that's what like all this was about. But like the first time through Muv-Luv, it leaves just a terrible impression.
Because you have to go through like a school romance drama first.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the sci-fi story.
Yeah, and this was like the first game that I reviewed for RPGFan, and
oh wow.
I remember playing through the game, like after like the first 15 hours, I went on Slack and I just started bitching about the game, about like how
and this was
how awful I found.
This is in like middle of 2016 probably, or maybe early 2016.
It was like in August, I think, and I was just like, this game is awful. I don't think I can really like finish this at all. But like, I just like stuck with it. The first half of the game is just complete, just like borderline filler garbage, I would say, just like first impressions wise. Like second half is where it starts getting interesting because it puts the characters in a new setting. You sort of get to see how like their previous mannerisms and idiosyncrasies really sort of like play out in this different world, and how how their actions have real consequences this time around. And the second half of Unlimited essentially sets up for Alternative, which is just a big finale for the series, pretty much.
But you think that if someone was interested in Alternative, they really have to play the first one in Unlimited first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh boy.
They absolutely have to, because like otherwise, like as like annoying as the first game might be, it's like you just have to get yourself familiar with the characters to really have that emotional payoff in Alternative. Because otherwise Alternative is just like some sort of like an action flick almost, I'd say. But like having played through the first game and like gotten to like really know these characters, like it Alternative definitely becomes a much more emotional experience.
Cool.
So,
and, all right, I've played some visual novels, but mostly ones that have sort of more adventure game elements, or toe the line between Western adventure and Japanese visual novel. I don't know the last time I played a straight up visual novel. I guess it was the first Fate Stay Night, but which I played only just a couple of years ago. But if someone was like me who was interested in the medium, but maybe hasn't played a ton of them, but it has some RPG honed patience, would Muv-Luv be a good starting point?
Oh, that's sort of tough to say because like, I mean, I think Muv-Luv is an absolute it's like the high point of the genre. I mean, if you have the patience for it, I think it's definitely worth it. Like, I think I said this in the review as well. Like, if first impressions of the game really determine your sort of like enjoyment of like a lot of it, then like Muv-Luv is like a terrible game to start out with. Like, you need to familiarize yourself with the genre more. Know what you like.
Cool, and and that would be just an 80-90 plus hour time investment just to get through all that story.
Well, the first game sort of buzzed through it in about, I'd say, around 20 hours at most.
Okay, so that's not as bad as I thought. But
yeah,
anyway, for more detailed thoughts on Muv-Luv Alternative, listeners should check your review on the site. I remember you absolutely gushing about that game in Slack when it happened. But yes, staying on this visual novels train, an indie visual novel came out just I think only a month or two ago that seemed really subversive and dark and weird for the genre, which was fascinating reading people's reactions to it. I'm speaking of the delightfully named Doki Doki Literature Club. Which even had, I think on the RPGFan Discord, even had its own channel just to talk about it.
Did it?
For a while.
Spoilers, yeah.
I'm working on a review for it as we speak.
Oh, excellent. But I know you played it, and Marcos, you also played it. What were your
nice.
What were your thoughts on the old Doki Doki?
Well, the original impression I like to go into things blind. So I was like, all right, this looks harmless. This looks really wholesome. Played it, and then like when it finally got through the first section, I was like, okay, okay, let's start this up again. And then continue. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
I saw so many like article titles and tweets that were just a WTF is happening to me, Doki Doki Literature Club is happening to me kind of situations. So I don't know exactly when your review is going to post, Rob, but did you have a similar, shock and awe kind of reaction?
I did, but I mean, since Marcus is a little bit pressed for time, if he's got some deep thoughts on it, I'd love to hear them.
I guess the only deep thoughts I have is more the use of what's his name? I know his name Salvato is his last name, so I'll go by that. I think is it Dan Salvato?
That's correct. Yeah.
Just personally, there are certain like sections that like the audio starts to get like used in a certain unique way without spoiling too much that I found very fascinating. One particular instance was when the main character exit the classroom. The music stays in the classroom, and it's like you hear it muffled through the walls. And that gave me it reminded me of the Adult Swim short Too Many Cooks. Too Many Cooks. That was the first thing I was like, oh, this is like Too Many Cooks.
Oh, God.
And then it got really crazy.
This is the Too Many Cooks of visual novels.
I like to think that it starts really wholesome, like Too Many Cooks, just like 90s sitcom theme song, singing really happy, and all of a sudden it's like there's that creepy bald-headed man with greasy like hair that's running after people, but more so it's just cute girls instead.
Doki indeed.
Or a YouTube video person in their title. Doki Doki is now Okie Dokie. Definitely look that up and you'll find the video. But one thing I do want to say before, because I am a little pressed for time, I'm leaving shortly, is the music. I wrote a review on the soundtrack, and one thing I will say is that I found the soundtrack very compelling, very used very well, and it definitely hit home to give you both that like false sense of security. Especially like that cute little visual novel type music where it's like synthy, very poppy, bouncy, and then you finally hit that certain wall. It's like, okay, it's creepy. I'm gonna stop listening. I'm not going to bed tonight. I'm gonna go just sit and look at the wall for a couple hours and then go to work.
Yeah,
there's instances of dynamic music that's used really well too. I mean, like in early stages, like it'll seamlessly transfer between like the main theme of the literature club and then like a different instrumented version for like its specific character's leitmotif, and then like they use that same kind of like dynamic music shift to do some more interesting things with later on, as you said.
Yeah, what he's talking about is when the girls are reading their poems. There's one theme that plays, and then when it switches to reading their poem, then the instrumentation changes to music that kind of like, I guess, call it the character's leitmotif. Like for what's her name? Was it Yuki or Yuri or something like that?
Yuri is the gloomy girl.
Yeah, it's more classy. You'll hear more strings and more like refined or something like that. Well, for Natsuki, for her, it's more like elementary sounding. You get like that recorder that sounds really a tiny bit sharp or a little adorable, a little bit more percussion, just to give it that kind of like elementary sound. And then for like the other young lady, what's her name? I feel like an old man. I can't remember any of these people.
There's Sayori and there's Monica.
Sayori, that's it, or Sayori. For her, it's like more like relaxed, more chill, and a little poppy too. And it switches like between those when it's reading, and that's really excellent. I think that's always good to be able to transition between tracks, and I think the Ansel Fata does a great job with that. And if you just read my review, you'll also see like other thoughts I had on the soundtrack.
All right. I think we're going to continue living in visual novel land for a minute for a game that I know at least 3 of us have played. Danganronpa V3 came out in September worldwide, and Nippon
Not
Ichi...
Japan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. It was in Japan. It came out in January of this year, and its release in other regions was September. That was about 8 months of trying to avoid spoilers, I guess. But Alana, you and I were on a spoiler podcast for Danganronpa V3 earlier this month, and I know Rob. I know you played it, Rob, and I'm not. Dom and Peter, I'm not sure you guys have.
Tread carefully, guys. I'm only in chapter 4.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We won't do any spoilers.
Okay,
This
we're
is
not going to do any spoilers, but we will definitely say it came out in 2017, and I will definitely say it is not my favorite Danganronpa, but man, it was a ride. It took me for a ride like a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 menu.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I was ready for the ride for definite, and it sure did take me for a ride through all 6 chapters, but it's not my favorite in the series, and it's not making my list, I'm afraid, just because I just think it's my least favorite, just for characters. I think mechanically it's the best, but I think it might be the weakest character-wise and story-wise for me, sadly. But I don't think it should discourage any of you from playing it, because Danganronpa V3 is definitely an experience, like all the other Danganronpa games, and they are really easy to pick up. You must play all 3 of them in order as well. If you play them out of sync, then you will spoil all of the previous games and stories and everything. I think it does some clever things with its narrative, for definite.
Oh, yeah.
And I have been generally...
I like how it how subversive it is at times. And it's very aware of its audience. It's playing to an audience that has played other Danganronpa games, and it wants to mess with the expectations of its audience. And in some ways that I found frustrating sometimes, in other ways I thought were quite clever. We have to avoid spoilers, because this game is practically made of spoilers, and sometimes and it's one of those games where sort of the plot is the game at times, even though there is some entertaining gameplay like that isn't directly attached to plot. But basically, I think it's a must play if you like Danganronpa 1 and 2 and want more. But I don't.
I know I haven't finished yet, but it's unless it completely messes the bed with its ending, and from what I've heard people saying about its ending and how divisive it is, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think it might.
The ending
might
is wild.
be up my alley.
The ending
is
wild.
It is wild.
So,
but I'm completely in love with it.
Nice. That's really good.
Right on.
I was going to say, the initial reaction to the ending was kind of a what, but then it took me a while to warm up to it, but I have warmed up to it. And I think, even though I say it's my least favorite in the series, it's probably by a smidgen. Like, they're such good games that you almost have to consider them as one full arc or one full, bubble. So
better than Despair Girl. I mean, not as good as Despair Girls, huh?
I haven't played Despair Girl, sadly. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I would definitely say out of the 3, I mean, they're all on par almost, so it's a really difficult statement to make. But yeah, I loved it. You'll love it, I reckon. I think it's right up your alley.
And Alana, you do have a review of Danganronpa V3 on the site, I believe.
I do.
And also we have that spoiler cast I mentioned. It's in the random encounter feed and not the retro encounter feed, if you want to hear Alana, Rob, Derek, and myself all talk about it, listeners. So, but I found it very entertaining. It was a total ride. It probably is also my least favorite of the main trilogy, but that does not mean that I don't mean that in a majorly disparaging way. It's just, it finishes 3rd, but all 3 are strong.
Any other year,
yeah,
crazy.
Right. And then this year is again we're not even halfway down this list of games that we may cover in this episode. I don't know how deep down the list we're gonna get. Oh, let's talk about another game that came out in September of this year that I have not played yet, although I'm very eager to. And Alana, you also reviewed for the site. We're talking. You know what we're talking?
Yeah. We're talking East 8, aren't we?
Indeed, we are. So
yeah, I broke the East virginity.
Wasn't this your first East game or second?
Second,
Right.
I reviewed East Origins for PS4 as well this year. So
okay.
So I'd never played an East game before this year, and I've nailed 2 of them. So, yeah, what am I doing?
You
basically?
started with 2 of the strongest mechanically.
Yeah, I really did, and it's really impressive. So I'll focus on East 8 because East 8 is the new one, and most people on this podcast and probably who are fans of the series have played Origin. Origin is excellent. East 8 is also excellent, and I really... It plays so beautifully. It is maybe... Going back to the Nier Automata discussion we were having earlier, its combat does get a little bit repetitive, but God, is it smooth, and it's so easy to kind of play around, create combos. Easy, yeah.
I can just lose an afternoon running around the plains, killing things in East 8.
Ridiculous, isn't it? I think East 8's world map is really fun to get lost in. So it's the biggest world map in the series as far as I'm aware. It is the biggest, it's the longest game in the series by a mile. It is double the length of the next nearest one as far as I'm aware. And that's not even if you do side quests and build your base and things like that. So it adds loads of really nice new mechanics to it. And it really kind of runs away with, like, it's the most popular East title, I think, in the series critically and maybe probably commercially eventually, I would have thought. But there are issues with it, and myself and Derek reviewed the PS4 version before I did, so there are a couple of problems with it, most of which are very publicized because sadly that script is not up to scratch, which is a shock because Danganronpa V3 script is so tight and so, like, perfect in that situation, but it's almost like the developers and the translators and the people working on it just thought of it as like, oh, it's a small RPG, not many people will play it, and they kind of took all the sensibilities from Danganronpa and a lot of their other projects that they work on and gave it a kind of kiddie anime charm that it, not charm even, but the kiddie anime kind of sensibilities that it didn't need. So like, it's very literal, and I think the posts have been going around on the internet for a while, so everybody who knows about it, you know, it's pretty darn obvious that they're literally just like, I think there's one place, Archaic Big Hole.
That's right.
Like, isn't it just like Crater of Arkazo or something in Japanese? Or
I think they say
like
crevice, yeah.
Crevice,
So
yeah,
it's...
which, big hole. Yeah, that's a big hole. I did think that. Yeah, and also my personal feelings are that I have never played a Trails of Cold Steel game, but the cutscene length, the amount of story and the amount of exposition this game throws at you is almost on the same level. And an East game is kind of like a pick-up-and-play game for me. And it's like...
Yeah.
This is the first Ease game that was written by Kondo, the writer of the Cold Steel games.
Oh, okay.
That would explain everything then, yeah. So it does take all of those anime sensibilities, and like, I'm not knocking Cold Steel's story at all, because in that universe, it's really... It fits. Like, those games are designed for slow and steady progression, for a build-up of mystery, for a build-up of this character's going to betray you, this character's going to do this character's going to do that. And it also is ostensibly more anime, for lack of better words or like more elegant description, but Ys's pacing is all over the place, especially in the beginning, where you're just stopping for a 5-minute cutscene and then you going off somewhere else and then you stop again for another cutscene, and it throws so much at you. It does a Tales thing where it throws so many terms at you at once. You have to go, hang on, wait, have you told me this? Do you have to read the dictionary for it?
Tales is usually the king of made-up RPG words.
So this really reminded me of Tales.
Yeah. It's a real shame because, like I said, mechanically it's beautiful to play. It's like smooth butter. It's such a beautiful action RPG. I think that island is extremely fun to explore. The soundtrack is amazing. Again, like Falcom's sound team always knock it out of the ballpark anyway, so kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, it was just like, I prefer Origin in almost every single way, maybe apart from the exploration side and the fact that it's less repetitive. Like, Origin, you have to go through the same dungeon 3 times. East Origin, you have East 8, you have an entire island to play with. But you have 6 characters that you swap between. It's really, really fun. It's just a shame. And I don't think the localization will fix all of my problems with it, because it is ultimately, I want to pick up this game and play it for an hour ago.
Yeah, the localization is why I'm slow to play it, because I am a huge East fan, and my favorite one in the series is E7's, and this one is sort of like an evolution of that one in a lot of ways. So I was really excited to play it. I was busy with other games right when it came out, but when I heard the complaints about the localization and then the comeback that they were going to fix the localization at a later date, I decided, all right, I can wait for this. I'll wait for this localization to happen. I'm eagerly doing that. So, but it's I'm a little bit surprised that it had the backlash it did from fans.
Yeah, it's a good thing though, because a lot of people actually missed it, and some people still pick holes like it's not too bad. But the fact that Nisa have responded the way that they have has shown that they do actually want to try and they are caring about it. And the fact that Falcom even responded, like in Japan, they said, we know this is not acceptable or something along those lines. So there was clearly something to kick up a stink about.
Maybe they shouldn't have let Nisa outbid Exceed, I'm just saying.
That's an entirely different thing, isn't it? I mean, one thing I picked up in the localization was the fact that it felt like a Hollywood remake of a really old adventure book rather than... like, because Ys Origin has a sense of mystery and charm about it, whereas Issei is like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. Oh, we need to talk to that guy over there. That's not what I was looking for, and it's a shame, but I think I'm really glad to see the positive reception it's got, because, like I said, Issei has really kind of popped out among the crowd for a lot of people, and I think it's going to do really well, and it's really nice to see Falcom having this real boost in popularity over here, and it's fantastic, because they totally deserve it. And getting into their games gradually and really experiencing the East series, the Trail series, also Zwei as well. Like, everything is kind of blowing up for them at once at the moment, and it's lovely. So hats off to them, and I'm sure this localization will fix many problems. The fix will sort out a lot of problems for a lot of people, and I hope that it does. So I'll definitely check it out again and see what it does, and maybe give people an updated impressions along with Derek. So yeah, I don't miss out on it, and just maybe wait for this update.
All right. So, one other interesting thing I thought happened in 2017 were at least 3 that I am aware of pretty high-profile PS2 remakes that we got. Not all at once, but sort of, but I think all in the middle or second half of the year. And one of them, Peter, you just reviewed on the site the remake of, and now I'm probably going to mess this up, the second set of .hack games.
Yeah, .hack GU, Last Recode. It's a compilation of the original .hack GU trilogy, which was originally released on the PS2 around 2006, I want to say. And I've always wanted to try these games because they have this really unique style to them where they're about a fictitious MMO, and you actually interact with it via a virtual desktop, complete with email, forums, little fake news broadcasts that give you wider insight into the world, that are some of which are fully animated. Like it's really neat. The problem was at the PS2 games, the series has a very devoted fan base, and I think they also had a fairly limited print run. So getting PS2 copies was going to be pretty difficult for the longest time. I think the last volume of the original series, Quarantine, I think on Amazon that was going for like $200 at one point.
Yikes.
I'm just like, no.
These games are way better than those ones were.
I haven't played the original series. And the nice thing about Last Recode is that it's actually a really good jumping in point if you're curious, because
that's good.
It includes all of the terminal disk files from the that came packaged with .hack. So that includes synopses of the first 4 games.
Right. Oh, wow.
As well as some in-between behind-the-scenes stuff that sets up the backstory of the game. And as you beat each volume in the series, they add more of these to just shed further light on what's going on. It's kind of like, I've complained about Sword Art Online a lot of times on this show, and I think .hack is like, we did this first and we did it way better.
Yes. Thank you.
For definite, it always did. Even the anime series and everything. Like, I was a victim of the original games in that I picked up one of the original .hack games for cheap. It was dreadful. I hated it, and so I just didn't pick up any of the GU series, but I really am interested in the nice positive response for the remaster as well, because it's nice to get it out to an audience and it's not breaking the bank. Like, you've got 3 games and then the extra chapter, which is like maybe 5 to 10 hours, which is a nice addition.
Yeah.
And then all these other materials that Peter's mentioning that really seem to flesh out the lore and the story. It seems like a very well put together package.
For sure. And I mean, the games themselves are pretty basic. Like, combat's kind of fun, but it's very just hack and slashy. You have a few different weapon types, a few basic combos. You don't get a quick select until Volume 2, which is a little annoying. Whoa. So in the first game, you have to like manually open up the menu and switch weapons whenever you want. That's something they ironed out as the games went on.
Iterative.
Yeah, for sure. Although why they couldn't have gone... I mean, it's interesting to me that this collection keeps some of that stuff, you know? Like you don't get some of the gameplay improvements until the same volumes they originally were. But
it seems a little rough and ready in that regard.
For sure. I guess it's authentic. I don't know. But the environments are really dull. That's one criticism I will give, because they're all randomly generated, and so it's all like this kind of copy pasted. It's like the original Dark Cloud. Basically, you're just kind of running around the same hallways and caves and doing the same objectives over and over again. It's the story and the visuals, the cutscenes are really well animated, and the music is absolutely freaking phenomenal. Like, it has a gorgeous soundtrack.
Peter, you just finished a review for the main site, and listeners can read that if they want more detailed thoughts on .hack. But that was not the only PS2 remake we got this year. We also got Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age, the international version of FF12 that did not come out in North America, but did come out in other regions on the PS2, where they add a class system, changed the license board, made a lot of mostly positive changes to FF12, and it was, I believe the response to this PS4 remake was pretty enthusiastic, and Rob and Peter, both of you were on a Retro Encounter podcast earlier this year playing the game. I think you were all playing the remake for the podcast. Right?
Yep.
With Caitlin.
Right on. So, I mean, I listened to those episodes, so I know that you liked the game from listening there, but care to elaborate a little bit on the remake here? Do you think it might make an end-of-game list for either of you?
It's not going to make my end-of-year list, but, I mean, that's just by virtue of this being such an incredible year that, boy, you know, I can only include so many games. It'll definitely get an honorable mention from me. But, you know, for a long time, this was the sole Final Fantasy game that wasn't really available on modern consoles. And, boy, it's made a return in a big, bad way. And I, for one, am glad that it is, because I feel like it's an incredibly strong post 16-bit era entry in the series, and one of my favorites by virtue of its strong writing and phenomenal voice acting. And you know, it dared to be different in terms of its gameplay systems and its mechanics. That was very, very divisive when the game came out, but I feel like the Zodiac Age, I feel like people have come around on it, and this game's finally getting the respect and fanfare that it deserves 11 years later.
Yeah, for sure. Zodiac Age really sets a new bar for HD remasters in general. Just
it's beautiful.
Yeah, the amount
especially since they added the Pirates Den in a later patch.
Yeah,
I need to patch that.
Cool, but they actually went in and did that. Like,
so sad it was gone.
They went and brought back a missing feature from the original release. They really polished it up, refined the mechanics, added in like subclassing. Like, yeah, Zodiac Age is the complete deal. It's the easily, I think, the best version of a criminally underrated Final Fantasy game.
Awesome. And I guess there was also a Kingdom Hearts thing. So that's enough. That's enough of the PS2 remakes.
2.8 final chapter prologue.
Okay.
To be fair though, Dream Drop, is it Dream Drop Distance?
It's a fun. There's a fun 2-hour demo for Kingdom Hearts 3 that you can play, and that's the best part of the collection.
I hate Dream Drop Distance a little bit.
I hate all of them.
I played Dream Drop Distance again when I got the collection, and I'm like, yeah, this is a video game. But...
Well, I mean, the correct answer is it's all right for about 15 hours, and then the final boss is ridiculous. It's so
that final boss gauntlet is so hard. It also helps that I think it's a fun game, but oh man, the level design is so bad.
But it's got a Fantasia world with music.
It does have a Fantasia world, and that's really cool.
I will agree with what Peter said. That is a video game. So, all right. What else do we have to talk about?
They also put all the other Kingdom Hearts games on PS4, so you can play them on that too.
Right.
Don't you have to buy like 3 separate games to get them all?
It's HD 1.5, HD 2.5 Remix, and
what is with these titles?
And 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue.
Tetsuya Nomura.
And now it's HD 1.5 plus 2.5.
I got one of those, I think the PS3 version as a gift, but I literally have no idea which one it is. Because I find the titles just a mess. But we don't need to meditate too much on Kingdom Hearts. Those 3 releases are all available on PS4. At least the last 2 were 2017. The first 1 or 2 might have been 2016. I'm not positive. I haven't done all the research on it, but Kingdom Hearts fans, that might whet your appetite a little bit before Kingdom Hearts 3 allegedly comes out eventually.
December 31st, 2000.
Allegedly, like it's committed crime.
Apparently,
it gets the word double adverb of allegedly eventually, which is does not express a lot of confidence from me, but we'll see. So let's leave the PS4 for a minute. There's a bunch of 3DS stuff that I mostly did not play that came out this year. Pokemon got a double sequel in the style of Black 2 and White 2. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out.
Oh, is it actually a sequel? I thought it was just like...
No,
it's alternate.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. It's a remake, not a sequel.
It's basically a platinum or an emerald version. The same.
Yeah. Remake the game that we put out last year.
Yeah, which is kind of sad, really. But
is the year the normal interval?
No.
It's normally longer.
It's usually about 2 years, I think. Which
it
was 1 day less than a year.
Pretty much since Gen 6 started, they've been pumping these things out annually.
They did some remakes, I think, between X and Y and Sun and Moon.
X and Y never got their Crystal Platinum green version, or I'm sorry.
No, they did Horus, and that's it.
No, and I have picked up Ultra Moon, sorry. But I will get rid of Moon for it because really, essentially, I played through all of Moon, loved it, but haven't touched it since I finished it because the end game is really weak. But the end game in this looks more interesting because as a lifelong Pokemon fan, I do enjoy replaying and fighting villains over and over again just to remind them that I've been a Pokemon master since I was 6. So
Giovanni is the gay agenda in Ultra Sun and Ultra.
Oh yeah, Team Rainbow Rocket, which is a great team name.
It is, and he's got all the baddies under his thumb, and he's showing them who's boss. Like Lysander, go sit in a corner and think about what you did.
Sexy pirate man.
If the Houston NBA team ever has like an LGBT Pride Day, they should be the Rainbow Rockets just for one night. I would buy a James Harden Rainbow Rockets jersey. I think.
The Rainbow Rocket in your pocket?
No, Rob, I'm just happy to see you.
Yeah, Ultra Moon is a lot of fun. I actually got it as a gift. So.
Yeah, I know that Nathan and Derek both played it or were playing it and discussed it a little bit on an episode of Random Encounter last month, I think. So you can listeners can look for that if they want more detailed RPG fan thoughts on Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. But let's move away from Pokemon and talk about some Pokemon mimicry. Monster Hunter Stories came out this year, which was a game I never would have expected to see as a person with a checkered Monster Hunter fandom history. But it takes Monster Hunter designs, which I enjoy and I think are very cool, and sort of chibifies both the human and monster designs for the 3DS. And instead of hunting and killing monsters and making weapons and armor out of them, you do a little bit of that and also team up and ride monsters from the Monster Hunter series in a game that has been called, Pokemon adjacent a little bit, but some people even dare say they like it more than Pokemon. I know that, I think Nathan reviewed it for the website, but our social media maven, Steph, was playing it and really, really liked it and had a bunch of weird Monster Hunter questions for me via Facebook message while she was playing it. Like, what's up with this thing? What's up with that thing? It looks really cool. I haven't played it, but I definitely want to. Does anyone here have any Monster Hunter Stories thoughts?
No, sadly not.
Darn.
Haven't had a chance yet. I am keen to play it, though.
As am I. So, okay, we're starting to run out of games on the list. Night in the Woods came out this year.
Yeah, I really want
Did.
to play this. And I know someone on this podcast reviewed it.
I love the look and vibe of that game, and Fenner, I know you were excited about this game before you even got to play it. So go ahead with your thoughts on Night in the Woods.
I was excited. Full disclosure, I was a Kickstarter backer of this game,
Okay,
but
cool.
just I just paid to get the game itself. Boy, oh boy, this ticks pretty much all of my boxes. It's like a zine and comics tinged adventure game slice of life about moving back home because you're a failure, and getting along with your friends and trying to put your life back together while there's like a hint of a mystery happening in the background. What happens in the titular Night in the Woods, and it's this day-to-day formula of hanging out with your friends and stealing pretzels and hanging out and getting into mischief behind the mall. I don't want to gush too much, but like I love everything about this game. This it does so much well, and it's got one of my favorite scripts in a game ever. It's got some of the most natural feeling and relatable dialogue that I've ever seen. God, I can't say enough nice about it. It's a real triumph. It was really worth waiting for. It had a lot of delays before it finally came out in February of this year, but my goodness, where am I going with this? I think you have to be made of stone to not like something about it.
I saw this at E3 2016. I had not heard of it, and one of our newsboys, Colin, saw it on like the first day and was gushing about it back at the hotel. So I'm like, all right, I'll check out this thing. I hadn't heard of it before, and just watching the demo of it, watching someone else play the demo at E3 2016, just my grin just grew bigger and bigger and bigger. It has such a cool vibe around it, and is visually so pleasant, and the dialogue is just so
it's so cute and so funny and so sad.
It's rare for a game to feel chill, and this game, and this game 100% feels chill. And I don't know of a better adjective to pick with it. And I have not bought it. It's on my Steam wish list. I'm going to get that thing eventually, and I believe I will like it when I eventually play it, but it just hasn't happened yet.
I'm in the boat. I believe it's coming out on Switch next year. Is that right?
Neat.
Or
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
So
I think put it on the Switch might be the motto of Twitter for the second half of 2017.
Pretty much.
But I think I'll wait for that version because I think it's the perfect sit down and play with a cup of coffee kind of game. Like
they're adding new stuff to that version, and like all that stuff is going to be free for the versions that are already out. But I think Switch is the first one that's going to get that whole package all together.
Yeah, no, just it's going to be a comfy chair, some coffee or some wine. You need the chill environment to play the chill game. You gotta, it's all gotta, just gotta harmonize a little bit.
I think it's the only game I didn't play this year that I regret not getting around to, and like you, it wasn't on my radar until about a year ago, and then because of all the positivity and the kind of fuzzy felt look about it. It looks like either paper characters and things that just look so lovely. And I have seen part of the script, and I don't think there's a time where I've not had some kind of really neat emotional reaction, whether it's laughter or kind of the relatability that Robert was talking about. Like, it's just really neat looking, and it's also really sweet to hear of a successful and really good Kickstarter. Like, so nice to hear it. And something that's, passion and hard graft does work a lot of the time, and it's a really good example of it, to be honest.
It's like pretty much like 3 people made this game.
Exactly. So
Scott, his wife Bethany, and Alec Paloka.
Definitely, and I'm so glad that it's as good as it is, because in a year of really strong games, Night in the Woods standing out as an excellent narrative game is wonderful, and it's just a joy to look at. So I'm definitely going to pick that up as soon as it's out on Switch. If it takes a bit longer, then I might pick it up on Steam. So, yeah.
So, we're over an hour and a half already on this podcast, and I'm after our 3.5 hour monster that we divided in two earlier this month. I'm a little bit leery about podcasts going too long, so I'm gonna hustle us through a little bit, and I apologize because I'm sure we have a lot more things to say of stuff that happened this year. We haven't brought up Neo, Hakuoki, Mario plus Rabbids, Divinity Original Sin 2, Cosmic Star Heroine, Tokyo Xanadu. There's just so much stuff came out this year that it's impossible to talk about all of it. Shit, I mean, I reviewed the second South Park RPG last week.
You've also missed Pyre as well.
Yeah, and Pyre. Oh, I love Pyre. So Pyre's probably going to be, if I were to make a top 5 for the year of what I've played, Pyre and South Park might both be on the list. I'm not sure, but that also goes. That speaks to what I haven't played more than what I have played, perhaps. But,
I don't think so.
Well, I enjoyed both of them a lot. Like, Pyre is the combination of Oregon Trail basketball and post-apocalyptic jewelry box storytelling that I always knew I never I never knew I always wanted. And South Park is, like, if you like South Park and you like superhero stuff and you like turn-based RPGs, you should have already played that game by now. There's so much came out in 2017 that I'm sure listeners have been listening along, and for many of them, we haven't mentioned their favorite game that came out this year, just because there's so many good ones that came out.
Right in.
But yeah, so if you want us, if we forgot something, or you want to, us to go over a certain topic, please contact us. But we'll get to that later. I want to continue looking back towards 2017 because we had, counting this episode, we've had 52 episodes with 18 RPGFan staff members contributing to those, just on Retro Encounter alone. And especially in the second half of 2017, a bunch of RPGFan features with more and more people writing for the site than ever. I think the number of RPGFan staff totals up to like the 40 range, perhaps?
Yeah, we're well above 40.
Yeah, so like
incredible.
Probably in the 40 to 45 range, and since only 18 people showed up on podcast this year, I have more work to do. I guess so. Like even if I have to like physically drag John A. or Colin over into an episode,
you got Rob Rogan over next year.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get Rob Rogan and Greg McCallum, both of them. I've gotten verbal commitments from them, so that'll be fun. But whether it was a feature that hasn't shown up on a podcast, or a podcast you were on, or just any RPG fan memory that you guys have had this year, tell us a little bit about it. And I'm gonna pick on Dom now. What was your favorite RPG fan thing that you did in 2017?
Well, I was gonna say that just writing up for the cast and characters and seeing that feature come together is probably my favorite moment for RPG fan moment of the year. It was just cool seeing everybody's perspectives on their favorite casts and games.
I was 8 of us, I believe. So I know myself, you, Dom, and Fenner contributed, and I believe Nathan, Marcos,
Nick and Neil both did it as well.
Nick and Neil did as well. So yeah, there were 8 of us, and
Hillary as well was also. She was
Hillary as well.
She was the podcast and the written feature. So 9 or 10. Yeah, 9 or 10 RPG fan staff members wrote about their favorite RPG casts and characters in September. And that was a lot of fun. Alana, do you have a favorite podcast or feature that you wrote in 2017 or spoke?
I didn't do as many features this year. I contributed to the cast and characters. I did Tales of Vesperia for that. I have a couple of favourite podcasts that I did. And this is one me and you come back to all the time, Mike. But we are big dog fans. You know this.
Yep.
This was my favourite podcast because it's just like we've got a follow-up in the planning stages coming for that. Not dogs, but another animal. Mm-hmm. But yeah, The Good Dogs of RPGs was a lot of fun because it was one of those goofy podcast episodes that you always want on your table, and it was really nice and fun to do.
It was very goofy and very positive. It was a lot of fun to record.
It was a lot of fun. We found out that there was only one bad dog. And it was fun. Dragon Quest 8, wasn't it?
Yeah, we went through probably a dozen RPGs talking about good dogs, and we could only think of one bad dog, which just goes to show dogs are perfect.
Dogs are perfect.
Even bad dogs are good.
But in terms of podcasts,
bad dogs are really just misunderstood dogs.
In terms of journals and stuff, a lot of the stuff I did this year was retreading my steps, which I don't know how I managed to do in a year where I played 11 new games or 12 new games. But the only new game I played was Grim Fandango, and I was thinking back to it and going like, boy, if that wasn't a game, if it was a TV show or something else, I think if I'd played it at the time, I probably would appreciate it more.
I would recommend... sorry to interrupt, Alana, but as someone who saw the movie Coco a few weeks ago, I think by watching Coco, you get a better experience than playing Grim Fandango and much of the same setting and humor.
Yeah, it is sad, but I really liked playing it because it was one of those things that I had wanted to tick off the box.
Gotta say, Alana, I played it at the time and I loved it, and going back to it, I think at the beginning of this year, those puzzles do not hold up.
They don't, do they? I remember watching my brother and his best friend play it back in '99, and I remember them just kind of trying and going through it and loving it, but doing it this time was like, it's almost impossible to play and enjoy it without a walkthrough, which is so sad. But I was so glad to experience it because it appeals to my sense of humor, and it appeals to, in a sensitive way, it appeals to that kind of culture. It's really well done. But my favorite Game Journal episode was Shadow Hearts Covenant, because it meant that I could have a re-perspective on a game that I thought I really, really, really loved, and just found out I liked it a lot. But it was nice to have Sollosi introduced to Shadow Hearts for well and truly, properly, to be honest. It was nice to experience it with everybody, and plus, because I didn't get any games on the 100th episode poll, knowing that I'd already won one was good enough for me, so...
Yeah, for me, talking about games you could sort of cross off the list. For me, Shadow Hearts Covenant, Tales of the Abyss, and Grim Fandango were all qualify for that. And the one we're currently playing, Breath of Fire 4, which we'll have an episode for next week. Those are 4 RPGs that I'd always been interested in, or I guess adventure games in the case of Grim Fandango, and finally got around to playing. So that was really rewarding for me. And I love the Dogs episode, of course, but other than those, my favorite thing we recorded this year, this might be a little bit of a surprise. I'm not sure, but it might be Rob, you and I talking about Produce.
Oh, no kidding.
Because you suggested that in our big document, and I hadn't thought of the Seventh Saga for years by then, and that was a weird Super Nintendo game that I was absolutely obsessed with. And you telling me that this was a developer was with this odd 90s legacy, I felt like I learned the most in that podcast episode compared to every other one that we had this year.
Yeah,
it was cool. It was very, very fun, me reliving parts of the Seventh Saga, which is honestly, I'm not sure if that's a good RPG, but it's one that has a very special, weird place in my heart. Like, I'm not saying the Seventh Saga is better than Dragon Quest V or Earthbound, but it is sure a game I played a lot and think about probably way too much. So,
I will talk about Brainlord all damn day.
Yeah, I had never heard of Brainlord or Mystic Arc, so it was really cool learning about those from you.
Oh, cool. Those were a lot of fun to record.
Peter, do you have a favorite retro encounter or RPG fan in general 2017 happening?
Oh yeah, I've really been enjoying our Final Fantasy feature in general, the Fabula Nova Universalis,
which is still ongoing. We're not done yet.
No, it'll be going because we have a ton of talented people on the site, and we all love video games. That's why we're here. We love Final Fantasy, and everyone just kind of came together, pooled their talents, and created just a bunch of awesome content. I really loved doing the film festival with you and Keegan, Mike.
That was a lot of fun to do.
It was fun to do. It's just something. I mean, I got to get my complaints about Kingsglaive after watching it off my chest on air. Finally, I thought that was great to do.
It was fun talking about them. I will say it was a little bit less fun watching those 3 movies.
Yeah, fortunately, I had children kind of seared into my brain by then. So, and I enjoyed putting together my. I wrote an article about Final Fantasy XIII's development. That was fun doing the research for that because Rob Rogan was able to find me some scans from Electronic Gaming Monthly that I wanted. That was really helpful because, I remembered reading this article in high school about Final Fantasy XIII before it came out, and it had a quote in it I wanted to use, but I'm like, I cannot find this issue anywhere. So he went out online and found a PDF of the article.
Good guy.
For sure. Yeah, so that was fun to do. I've been loving seeing what everyone else has been working on, catching up on, Alana's FF9 article, or Steven Meyerink just did one on FF Tactics and its localization. just great stuff all around. It's been really impressive.
And we'd be remiss not to mention the wonderful Stephanie Sabidlo's wonderful art.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's mostly in the Memoria sub-feature of the larger FF feature, but all the stuff that she's done for the site, for all the artwork she's created is amazing. And I think we've mentioned this in multiple podcasts by now, but listeners, please check out the Final Fantasy feature that is still ongoing at the time of this posting, and especially Steph's art, because it's awesome.
Yeah, I had a friend who her favorite Final Fantasy character is Ferris from 5. So I sent her that piece Steph did. I'm just like, hey, check out what my cool artist friend did.
She is definitely our cool artist friend.
He's phenomenal.
So Rob, did you have a favorite RPG fan feature or review or podcast that you took part in this year?
I sure do. By virtue of just how full this year has been, I wasn't able to take part in as many game journals as I wanted to. I really enjoyed doing Shadow Hearts Covenant with you and Alana, and I'm sure we had was Steph on that. Steph, of course.
It was Steph.
I enjoyed revisiting that. I think my absolute favorite game journal of the year was Earthbound. I mean, it's no coincidence that that's like one of my favorite RPGs, if not my favorite.
That was a lot of fun to record too. I hadn't played Earthbound in over a decade, and it
neither had I.
Yeah, to see it hold up the way it did was just warmed the cockles of my shriveled up little Grinch heart.
But we got to record a lot of smaller, weirder episodes. You, me, and Alana talking about Persona 3 was a really delightful trip down memory lane.
We're only allowed to do one Persona episode a year, and 2017 was a Persona 3 episode.
And then, you and I, we just went way out and wild into the obscure niche stuff. You mentioned Produce earlier. That was one of my favorite episodes we recorded. I also liked Quintet with Hillary, and when we did our episode on localization woes and games that still hadn't made it into English in 2017.
We got stuck about Mother 3 and Seiken Densetsu 3 and Bahamut Lagoon and a bunch of weird stuff. That one was fun.
Yeah, so those were all a real delight for me, and they all stuck out as some of my favorite podcasts I took part in this year. So thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure.
I have a shout out for a feature that Fenner did that I think got some really good reception across the site, and I really loved it, especially because I was an East newcomer this year.
Oh,
so
yeah,
Fenner,
this one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Fenner wrote basically an introduction on how to get into the East franchise, and it's so well built and put together. So
you guys, you're embarrassing me.
But no, I think it deserves a shout out because in a year where East is getting so popular, this is the time where you need a guide, and that's kind of your go-to place. So thanks for putting it together, Fenner, because it's really, really good.
Thank you so much. I was really worried that I was just doing it for my own benefit, and then I saw a bunch of people commenting saying, this seems like a confusing series. Thank you. Now I know what to do. And I was like, well, mission accomplished.
When I jumped into the East series, I think it was about 4 years ago, because it was, I think like 2013 sounds right. I wish I had a guide like that, because I was a little confused. I played Felgana first, and then couldn't figure out where Salsetta fit in, and there was turns out there's 3 East 4s. East is not the most newbie friendly series to understand, and that it was a very well put together guide that Rob did for it.
Well, thank you so much.
So, okay, enough patting each other on the back, which is fun, I admit, and easy because I love all of you and you're all talented, but I wanted to look ahead a little bit into 2018. We're not going to go and look down a calendar of releases. If everyone could briefly shout out one game in 2018 that they're highly anticipating, that is, and try to stick to games under RPG Fan's coverage if you can. So I'm going to start in the middle and work my way out from my list here, starting with you, Peter.
Kingdom Hearts 3 is supposed to come out next year. Okay. Thank you. I was waiting for that.
Sorry.
But I mean, we've seen the most of that game that we ever have this year. It looks way more polished than those early trailers. So it seems more feasible now after so long that maybe we will actually be seeing 3 next year. I got to play an in-engine tech demo for it in 2.8. I'm also hoping to hear some news on the FF7 remake, even if it is just we decided to we screwed up. This was a terrible idea. Sorry.
That would make me so happy. Just for the soul.
I'm sure it's going to. I'm sure that long ways off, but and that we will probably. But I just want to see it in some form. Like, confirm, what are you actually doing with this?
All right, and Dom, is there a 2018 release that you're looking forward to in a huge way?
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Code Vein.
Ooh.
By Bandai Namco, yeah. And, yeah, like, as a huge fan of the Soul series, it's cool seeing, like it has a very Souls-esque feel, but I like the different setting.
But with adorable anime vampires.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, yeah, I'm just interested to see what they're going to do with it and how it turns out.
Right on. And Rob Fenner.
Okay, I don't think Shin Megami Tensei 5 is coming out next year. So, I mean, if it is, that's top of my list, but I don't think it is. I will skew pretentious and obscure in the way that I always do. 428 Shibuya Scramble is finally coming to the U.S. Next year. It is a Chunsoft sound novel, much like their earlier games, Kamai Tachi no Yoru, and it's said to be a spiritual sequel to Machi, which is one of the most critically acclaimed sound novels of all time in Japan.
I've seen Machi show up on lists on best game ever in Famitsu and stuff, and
that's right, yeah.
And it's always like, what the hell is that thing? Oh, 90s sound novel. All right, that's why I haven't heard of it.
So it's a choose your own adventure, choice heavy visual novel with loads of different endings that uses still photographs of actors for a very, very bizarre look. And it's about Shibuya being locked down after like a terrorist attack, and you swap between these different characters. It's said to be exquisitely written, and the localization is by none other than Alexander O. Smith.
Oh, shoot.
One of my favorite localizers.
Amazing.
So I'm sure he will do an incredible job. So I really, really can't wait to see this. It came out in Japan on like Wii and PS3 in like 2007. So I had completely given up hope that we'd see this, and I can think of nobody better than Alexander O. Smith to be handling this.
And wait. So is he localizing? Is it Machi or 428 that he's localizing?
428. Machi is probably never going to come out in English.
Right, I got it.
It's a Saturn game, so...
Cool. So, Alana, do you have a 28 most looking forward to kind of game on your radar?
I do. Maybe 2, maybe 3. All Kickstarters as well, which is a kind of scary thing. So I will just briefly drop all 3. First is Crosscode, which I did a preview for last year, or this year even. It's been in development for a while, but it plays like Zelda/Secret of Mana /Ys, and it's really fun. It's been pushed back a lot, so there are slight worries with it, but I'm hoping it's going to come out Q1 next year, so I'm really looking forward to that. Number 2 is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which I really damn hope is okay, but I'm so terrified.
That is maybe, that's the one that I'm looking forward to that I'm most worried about.
Exactly. I really hope it's okay. I don't know yet. I will tentatively put my name in and say I will hopefully like some of it.
I gave to that Kickstarter, so I'm already on the books for it. But yeah. I love the EGA style Castlevania games, or the huge majority of them at least. And if this scratches that itch again, then I'll be happy. Yeah,
fingers crossed. Lastly is Indivisible, which is made by the company that made Skullgirls. Like kind of Valkyrie profile style battle system. If people played Exist Archive in 2016, I'm sorry. This looks like a way better version of it, and it looks like it takes the Valkyrie profile style and really ramps it up. I played the demo of it about a year ago, and every time I see the animation and art style for it, it looks beautiful. That's due out next year, and a soundtrack by Secret of Mana's composer Hiroki Kikuta, so really excited for that one. I think that might just pip. I don't think I'm as worried about that as I am potentially the other two because of the amount of delays and that. Indivisible's only had like 1 or 2, whereas Bloodstained and Crosscode have had probably about 6. So, yeah, I'm
Night in the Woods had about 6, and
Yeah,
There you go.
that turned out okay.
All right. Well, it's my turn, I guess, and I'm going to go the absolute opposite direction from Alana and Rob and go with 3 gigantic AAA releases.
Oh God.
First one, and from me, if you know my tastes, you'll be expecting all 3. First, perhaps, is God of War. That game is I loved the PS2 God of War games, and I thought God of War 3 was a cool, ending to it. So I'm really curious as to how they're going to interpret Kratos' future and how he's going to be different and how the new environment's going to be different. I'm 100% there for it. Second is Monster Hunter World, the game that surprised me the most at E3 this year. And
I'm getting in on that.
And it rekindled a love of Monster Hunter that I thought had died when I first tried playing Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii, which I still think is terrible. I am remarkably anticipating Monster Hunter World, and I think a lot of RPG fan people will try and party up for that, because there's a 4-person multiplayer is how you do Monster Hunter, and if you're not doing it that way, then I don't know what to tell you. Play a different game. And last but not least, now that Persona 5 is on the books, I have to have a new most anticipated RPG, and ever since it was announced, it was Dragon Quest XI. And the PS4 version has been confirmed for North America, because it was at a Sony event that Yuji Horii dropped that announcement. But it's going to be out in 3 versions, 3DS, PS4, and Switch. And if all of them come out in English, I might get all 3. That's on the table. That I'm
Why not?
that I'm buying that game 3 times. I don't know yet, but I 100%.
I'm crazy enough to buy it twice. So.
I 100% want to play that day one. I adore Dragon Quest. It's one of my all-time favorite series, and we haven't gotten a new one in outside Japan since Dragon Quest 9. When was that? Like 08, 09 ish.
Gotta be alright. Yeah.
2010 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But 09 in Japan.
Sure. So it's been 7 years, which is a long time since we've gotten a new fresh one, and everything about that game just gets me more excited for it. It looks so beautiful, so very Dragon Quest. I'm really excited. So let's see. We covered at least 15 games in 2017 and another 10 or so for 2018. I think we're about done with the podcast, fellas and lady. So
Ooh.
Let's talk about our more immediate future. If you want to come in contact with with Retro Encounter listeners, retro@RPGFan is the email with which to reach us. You can also comment on the RPGFan.com boards, go on the RPGFan Facebook page, bug us on our listening venues like iTunes or Google Play or wherever you get your podcasts. We read everything that is directed to us, so please give us feedback or suggestions or anything, because it could be represented in shows in the future. Next week, Alana and I will be finishing off our Breath of Fire 4 adventure. That'll be the first Retro Encounter episode of 2018, and I'm probably nearish the halfway point, so I have a lot of playing to do, but it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm not going to come out of that game a hater unless there's a real weird turn in the last few hours. And I think now's the time to announce it. We're bringing back a feature that we did in early 2016 and playing 3 indie RPGs / visual novels in a row in January. The 3 games were in the middle of scheduling the podcast, so I don't know how exactly the order that they're going to air in. But the 3 games are the French RPG Maker game Off, that's OFF all caps, the classic Toby Fox 2015 game Undertale, which you've probably heard of if you're into indie games or RPGs, and lastly, the delightful Brazilian strategy game Chroma Squad, which is about a team of stuntmen making their own Power Rangers TV show.
You totally did not, you didn't have us
you'll never guess who suggested that last one. And
I was just saying, I know where to find you now.
Mike Salbato, obviously.
Obviously, I mean, that was clearly the Mike S. that spearheaded that operation. So if you want to reach us individually, listeners, let's share our social media information, starting with you, Alana.
So you can find me on Twitter at Alana Hagues, or you can come and find me on the RPG Fan Discord. I'm Diving Falcon, same name as the board. Come and chat with me. 2018 is going to be a nice year. I think it's going to be a lot more spread out, a lot more smaller releases for me, and a lot more backlog for me. So hopefully I'll be on some retro episodes playing stuff I've never played before.
All right, and Dom, your turn.
Yeah, you can find me as DH Candy on the RPGFan Discord and the forums, and hopefully 2018 will be the year I can clear up my Steam backlog.
That is a
Good luck.
That's a lost cause for me. Just
Sorry, what?
forget it.
Like how many?
It's kind of depressing to look at. I have to count.
I'm not going to look at mine. I'm not going to look. Nope. That Steam is closed right now. But Peter, your turn to share your social media info.
If you want to reach me, you can at I Have Fury on Twitter. It's the same as my forum handle. You can also reach me, Peter T, at rpgfan.com for any news inquiries. I'm hoping 2018 is the year of Luigi 2.0.
I still have my Luigi 3DS with Year of Luigi emblazoned on the back.
Such a good year.
Every year is the year of Luigi.
Oh yeah, I love Luigi, and that little 3DS has served me very well, and is baked in with a copy of Mario and Luigi Dream Team. So I thought it was a sound investment.
Nice.
And Rob, your turn. How can listeners reach you?
You can find me maxing and relaxing on Twitter at MissAnthroBob, and I hope 2018 is finally the year of Waluigi.
Oh.
Yes, Waluigi, the most criminally underrated Mario character. Bite me.
Yes.
Time to shine.
I hope 2018 is the year that we get a new game starring Mallow, Gino, and Washi.
Oh, that's one of my backlog games.
They took Gino out of Superstar Saga. I was so mad.
Yeah, that was a bit of a tease, having him just preside over a mini game. Well, all right, listeners, if you want to reach me directly, the best way to do so is probably on Twitter. I'm at The Real Monsoon most of the time, and at Revoker for Dogs when I'm ranting about Japanese costume superheroes. I'm also Monsoon on the boards and Monsoon Mike on Discord. And we have our dearly departed Marcos, who was on the first half of this episode, but had a pressing matter.
Well, what happened? Oh, no.
No. Marcos is fine. Marcos is fine. He had a family matter to attend, but if you want to reach him, he's Wild Armor on the boards and at RhythmRoo on Twitter. So I think that about does it for us, Retro Encounter panel. So Retro Encounter listeners, thank you, good night, and good luck.
It's not a game. I'm not a robot.